That's that the education requirements and the need to complete a planning obligation are factored into the recommendation, which seeks a resolution to grant planning permission subject to Section 106 agreement, which would address those matters. And the applicant has advised that lighting could be provided if it was required under the terms of a condition. It has been proposed on the footpath as bollards, but it's also been avoided for the remainder of the site in the interest of complying with the ecology recommendations. So that's the updates. Too many papers. So this application relates to land west of Church Lane, Newington. Proposal is for 90 dwellings and associated works. That's the application site. The site sits to the south and southeast of the school lane development that's been undertaken by the applicant, is nearing completion. It sits to the south of the Newington Primary School. It sits to the west of Vicarage Court, Denham Road, Hastad Road and Westwood Walk, and to the north of the railway line. There's a public footpath, public right-of-way, number 38, to the west, which leads from the tunnel to the southwest of the application site and heads in a northwesterly direction. The site is outside the built-up area boundary, which is shown on the left there, and it hasn't got any heritage assets directly applicable to it, although there are some nearby conservation areas and listed buildings, as can be seen yellow and red on the plan there. As said, the application is for 90 dwellings with an vehicle access from Denham Road, footpaths to the southwest to link to the existing public right-of-way, and a footpath leading out to Westwood Walk. There's also an access proposed for emergencies at the northwest of the site leading into the currently constructing school lane development. The proposed dwellings there's 90 dwellings, 4 one-bed flats, 4 two-bed flats, 13 two-bed houses, 38 three-beds and 31 four-bed houses. That's the arrangement of the housing. That's the arrangement of the affordable housing. There's 36 affordable, 4 one-beds, 17 two, 14 three and 1 four-bed unit. The applicant is proposing 90% shared ownership, 10% rented on the affordable, with a cascade being built into the 106 to enable it to go to 50-50 if a registered provider doesn't take it up at the preferred mix. This plan shows the routes through the site that are proposed, including the footpaths that I've mentioned. In order to create a safe access that's acceptable to the Highway Authority, the applicant is proposing, in conjunction with the Highway Authority, the provision of parking restrictions. These are shown around the access to the site on the plan to the left. On the right is the parking restrictions further up that would be proposed further up Church Lane, closer to the junction with the A2, and keep clear signage would be proposed. The reason for these is because of the narrowness and the need to parked cars, and the extra traffic caused by the development. This would create an extra long waiting area if it should be needed to avoid the cars backing up onto the A2. That's what this proposed for. The plans is 90 houses and flats. They're from a consistent material palette. All the buildings would be 2-storey, apart from or single-storey in the form of garages and cart lodges. The bottom middle is the flats above garages, which there's 2 proposed of, and the bottom right is the flats. The rest are other houses. These are computer-generated images that have been prepared by the applicant. And then the remainder of my presentation is photos of the site. So this is where the access would be from Denham Road, and on the right-hand side, the access, or the junction with Denham Road and Church Lane. various images of the access and the surrounding area. On the right is the route through to the public right of way and then into the field beyond at the top right. I'm sure you're familiar with the bridge in Newington, but there it is in case you didn't. These are, next few slides, are views from where the access would be. This is looking westwards from effectively the end of where the access would be from the end of Denham Road. Oops, sorry, wrong way. One to the left looks southwards towards the railway line, and one to the north looks northwards towards the school lane development. This was taken March-ish, and so that's why there's no leaves on trees. It gives you a chance to see what it would be like in winter as opposed to summer. And as you can see, the school lane development is just nearing completion when I was there, and it's progressed since. This, the view to the south towards the railway line. Again, a few photos from, this is towards the site from where the public right of way is, and that's the view in summer. That's the view of the site from the public right of way, again in summer. I didn't do it in winter, I'm afraid. You can see the school lane development was progressing, and the listed church is on the left-hand side beyond that housing. These are photos of the neighbouring properties that are closest to the access. The bottom right is the side elevation of the closest property in Denham Road, which has its conservatory extension facing towards the application site. It's a longer view at the top of all the properties, including Vicarage Court and Hastard Road. Two on the left are Westwood Walk, and then the view from the top part of the application site towards those neighbouring properties. So you can see that they were looking out toward, their rear elevations are looking out towards the application site. The large tree at Westwood Walk is there. The footpath would lead around it. That's the end of the presentation. The officer's report identifies that there is conflict with the development plan in the form of, by being outside the settlement boundary, it's not in accordance with the settlement strategy. There would be a loss of best and most versatile agricultural land, and there's a small degree, in our perspective, of landscape harm that conflicts with DM14. The NPPF is a material consideration, as you've heard me preach before. It's in significant weight. Because we haven't got a 5-year housing land supply, you're required to do a balancing exercise. We should be granting planning permission unless adverse impacts would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. In terms of the benefits, there's the 90 housing, there's the affordable housing, there's a supply of achieving a biodiversity net gain that it slightly exceeds the 10% minimum. There'd be an energy efficiency benefit through all of the dwellings having air source heat pumps. There's the public footpath, and there's the economic benefits. The harms I've already mentioned. Weighing the two against each other, we've concluded that the benefits outweigh the harms, and then the NPPF and the accordance with it outweighs the conflict with the development plan. And that's why I've recommended approval, subject to conditions and the completion of a Section 106 agreement for the matters that are set out in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Ian. Okay, we have some speakers. Can I please invite Parish Councillor Stephen Harvey, representing Newington Parish Council. Mr. Harvey, please. Welcome, Mr. Harvey. You've done this before. As soon as you press the button, you have your approximate 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. Just to get a perspective, Church Lane is 2,000 years old. It's got 120 homes in it, mostly 18th or 19th century. Sadly, they didn't see the motor car coming, and so it's a narrow lane. There are several side roads leading off it. If this application were approved, it would mean you had agreed to 150 more homes since 2011. In other words, you'd more than doubled the number of homes on Church Lane. And I haven't included the traveller sites in Wardwell Lane, which no one's yet managed to count. The inspector, who finally granted, after several applications, the current development next to the school, said, "I accept that Church Lane is narrow and a challenge for the driver in either direction." The officer, quoting the NPPF, says, "Development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety, or the residual cumulative effects of the road network following mitigation would be severe." I would argue this will be severe. The mitigation measures are inadequate. That homes will lose their on-street parking, they've got a vague offering of something in the nearby development, unclear who could use it, unclear what it would cost them, unclear what the security would be. Church Lane's difficult to navigate any day. The problem's critical at the start and the end of each school day. The cumulative effect of this development, 90 more homes, will make matters even worse. Denham Road, Hasted Road are perhaps misleadingly named. Westward Walk is actually more accurate. Backing on to Grade 1 best and most versatile farmland. 6 previous applications have been refused. They're given very scant attention in the officer report. No reasons given for those refusals. The top of Church Lane is often blocked. Traffic has to turn into Church Lane to see if the road's clear. This blocks any traffic trying to leave Church Lane. The proposed keep clear signs are given little attention in the report. They wouldn't solve the problem anyway. You have to turn into the lane to see if it's clear. Again, the inspector report from 2023, I experienced for myself the difficulties involved in turning into Church Lane from the High Street and emerging from Church Lane, particularly when turning right. And see again the Railton report. If you've any doubts this application shouldn't be refused, then please conduct a site visit and see for yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Can I now call Jane Venables, please? You can sit there, Jane. Yeah, cool. So on that console, you have 2 buttons. If you press the left one, as soon as you're comfortable and ready, you have 3 minutes, please.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I'm a resident of Church Lane, speaking on behalf of the local community. Our principal objection concerns the wholly inadequate parking provision and real traffic fears. The developer proposes just 14 spaces for residents who will lose roadside parking, yet far more will be lost through double yellow lines and highway changes. Most homes on Church Lane have no off-street parking and rely entirely on the road outside, so this is a clear net loss. The compensation offered, a car park inside the development, is neither practical nor fair. It is up to 200 metres from many homes, making it unsuitable for elderly residents, families or those with disabilities. Insurers often require cars to be visible from the home, and Kent Police have warned that such car parks are poorly overlooked, prone to crime and are likely to increase insurance costs. Human nature means people will still try to park as close to their homes as possible, displacing vehicles already congested into side streets. Meanwhile, delivery drivers, carers and emergency vehicles will struggle with access. Church Lane is an ancient lane in a conservation area. It measures only 4 metres wide, and with cars almost permanently parked along one side, this reduces to around 2 metres, barely enough for a single vehicle to pass, let alone the traffic from nearly 100 new dwellings. In addition, how do Furnham expect that construction traffic can be driven safely at this point? The lane is simply too narrow to do so without serious risk. Swale planning forbids Furnham homes from using Church Lane for construction traffic for their current build. As late as last week, this was still happening, with heavy construction traffic using the path as they came down the lane. Who is to say that they won't comply with planning conditions in the proposed site? Residents are rightly angered that a private developer can profit, while existing households are left worse off, unable to park outside their homes and potentially charged for insecure spaces they never wanted. Worse still, the double yellow lines could be introduced before the car park is built, raising real fears the developer could simply drop it altogether. Beyond parking, there are serious traffic concerns. Church Lane already functions as a single track road, is gridlocked at school times, and its junction with Denham Road is unsafe. Extra vehicles will only worsen congestion, road danger and risk to pedestrians. Finally, I remind the committee that Swale Council refused a similar application for access in 2010 because of highway safety concerns and loss of parking. Traffic levels have increased significantly since then. What was unsafe then is unquestionably unsafe now. For these reasons, we urge you to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Venables. Okay, in line with my position, I will recommend the officer's recommendation, or that's seconded.
Chair.
I'll propose that seconded. Thank you, Councillor Clark. We have two councillors here this evening, Councillor Chris and Councillor Richard Palmer. I don't mind who speaks first. Apart from Councillor Palmer. Councillor Chris Palmer, welcome. You have 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
I'm speaking today to object to the proposed development of 90 dwellings at land west of Church Lane, Newington. The application raises serious concerns about pedestrian safety, particularly the lack of formal street lighting within the development. The site includes walking links to Newington railway station, yet the proposed lighting is limited to low-level bollard lights along the footpath. This is inadequate, especially during darker hours in winter, and fails to meet the basic standards for safe pedestrian access. This design directly contradicts the commitments made by Kent Police, Kent County Council and Swale Borough Council to tackle violence against women and girls. Kent Police's Violence Against Women and Girls strategy 2021 to 2024 clearly states their aim to work with partners to create safe spaces for women and girls to live, work and socialise, improving feelings of safety. Kent County Council, which manages over 125,000 streetlights, acknowledges its duty to maintain lighting that supports public safety. Swale Borough Council's own community safety policies emphasise the importance of well-lit public spaces in reducing crime and fear. The National Planning Policy Framework requires developments to be safe, inclusive and accessible, with measures to reduce crime and the fear of crime. This proposal fails to meet that standard. If the committee is minded to approve this application, I urge you to insist on full height street lighting throughout the development and along all pedestrian routes, especially those leading to public transport. Anything less would be a disservice to community safety and contradict the very policies our local authorities have pledged to uphold. The junction with A2 and Church Lane, where Church Lane meets the busy High Street A2, already suffers restricted visibility, parking-related obstructions and regular queuing. Adding more traffic will increase the risk of collisions, delay emergency vehicles and endanger pedestrians, particularly children and older residents. The application contains no adequate mitigation. I ask that as a minimum, the Council require a full independent road safety audit and junction capacity assessment, a construction traffic management plan and immediate measures to protect visibility and traffic flow. Specifically, a full width keep clear road marking and appropriate signing and parking restrictions at the junction. This junction needs to be improved by condition. If this is not suitable, then the development must be refused until these safety measures are resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. I believe we have another Councillor Palmer. Councillor Richard Palmer, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We've got here an application that isn't isn't even compliant with the National Policy Planning Framework, the NPPF, Chapter 2, Achieving Sustainable Development. This application is unsustainable in its current form. The local infrastructure, and I'm going to concentrate on secondary school provision, is already under immense pressure. According to Kent County Council's own data, Sittingbourne faced a deficit of 176 Year 7 places in 2023, and this shortfall is projected to worsen due to the ongoing and proposed housing developments already. On the Isle of Sheppey, the situation is even more critical. In 2025, dozens of families were unable to secure local places, with some children offered places as far away as Faversham, Maidstone and Canterbury, up to 30 miles away. This has caused significant distress for families and highlights the systemic failure to provide accessible education. While a new secondary school is proposed for Quinton Road, Kemsley, Kent County Council has confirmed that the earliest delivery will not be before 2030 due to delays in the associated housing developments. This means that any new housing approved in the interim will further strain an already overstretched education system. If the committee is nevertheless minded to approve this application, I strongly urge the inclusion of a Grampian condition. This condition must prevent the occupation of any dwelling until a new secondary school at Quinton Road is entirely constructed and operational. This is a reasonable and necessary safeguard to ensure that educational infrastructure is delivered in step with residential growth. You, the Planning Committee, are the decision makers, not KCC. KCC have failed to provide the educational spaces, but you are the decision makers and you can put the condition in. In conclusion, approving this application without a condition would be detrimental to the community sustainability. I ask the committee to either refuse the application or apply a Grampian condition to protect the interests of the current and future residents. However, if you do not see clear reasons to reject this application, please vote for a site visit and see for yourself. The yellow lines are not approved at planning permission. They are approved later through the JTB. There is no guarantee that yellow lines will be approved in Church Lane, and this development depends on that. You must refuse it. It is clearly unsustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chris Palmer and Councillor Richard Palmer. Thank you very much. Members, that is the reason we are here this evening, is because that was called in. Okay? Bear that in mind. Okay, that has been proposed and seconded. Members, any questions? Councillor Winklish, you're quick off the mark.
Certainly am, Chair. Right. I went on a site meeting with the first development that basically took place. It came back to the committee after site meeting and it was refused at the planning committee at the time. As it says on 1.1, they went to appeal and it was lost. This development basically, to me, is a continuation on of the original development. Have come now back, obviously, for a second bite of the cherry. Right, at the first time when this came up, the access road was brought up. Knowing Newington quite well, the rail bridge with the traffic going down there. I know the KCC, I think you, Chair, said many times before, KCC don't sometimes give an accurate opinion on things, in my view. The junction at the top of the A2 is very dangerous. But I'm going to conclude, as I don't talk for too long on these issues, as you know, I unfortunately feel that if we was to turn this down, we would lose it again possibly on appeal. But I will take up Councillor Palmer, Richard Palmer's point. If we are minded to pass this tonight, can we have the condition put on for the Grampian? I'm asking the question by you, Chair.
Keep that one dry, Councillor Winklis, and we'll come back to that should we reach that point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chairman. Oh, sorry. Through the Chair...
That'll do. Don't throw things, please.
Could I ask Ian, a question? I note what Councillor Palmer has said about the school. Is it an adequate reason to refuse an application? And running on from that, surely we can't refuse any building of housing for the next 5 years until this school is built, because we are required to build a certain amount of housing each year. I mean, I know the situation is crazy. I think we need to pressurise KCC to sort something out. But is it a reasonable reason to refuse something, Ian? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. In my opinion, no. Otherwise, I would have done. The applicant, or the Education Authority, County Council, has sought contributions of 466 grand towards education provisions. That is the standard approach for developments of this scale, is to mitigate education need by making a contribution that will then be spent on capacity within the education area. It would be very difficult to say that a condition, as suggested, meets the relevant tests, because it would be out of the control of the applicant to be able to have any influence over whether the school would be built. That makes it, I would suggest, quite unreasonable to impose a condition. The educational authorities, I believe, are required to make provisions for education. There are various ways to do it. To link it to a specific school which hasn't been built, might not be built, would be problematic, because what if capacity was provided at a different school in a different way? The need that is arising from this development would be met through the planning obligation, which would secure the financial contributions which should be spent on education, and that's all that, under the terms of our policies, I think we can reasonably require.
Happy, Councillor Kavanagh? Excellent. I think I'll come back on that point as well. I think it would be wholly unreasonable to expect any developer to say, you've got approval, but you can't build, or I think that the statement was made, you can't occupy until the school is ready. Any development does cover, once it's built and it's sold, that money then goes to fund the remainder of the build. Okay. Who we got? Legal online. Good evening. You wish to make a statement, please?
Yes, it's simply to reiterate and to emphasize what's already been said in so many words, which is that any condition, be it a Grampian condition, which simply is just a negative condition, or any other form of condition in these circumstances, would be highly ill-advised, for the simple reason that none of the criteria for conditions in the NPPF would be satisfied, foremost of which would be that it would not be enforceable. You can't enforce a condition of that nature and order somebody or take somebody to court to say you've been in breach of a condition, therefore build a school. You just can't do it. It's just too massive. It's outside of the planning unit. It's not enforceable. It's not precise. And overwhelmingly, it is unreasonable and would be seen as unreasonable. So I would say very decisively to eliminate that possibility from your evaluations and your determination today.
Thank you very much. Point taken. I think it's another important issue. I believe the amount of money that the developer has offered to Kent County Council is within the guidelines. Is that correct?
I think, Chairman, the amount has been suggested by the Education Authority as using their calculations for establishing what the need would be derived from this development and how that calculates to pupil places and everything else. That's the standard procedures based on their practices.
And that's circa £500,000.
466,530.
Splitting hairs. We all know £500,000 to some people is an awful lot of money. £500,000 to mobilising school places, I can assure you, doesn't go very far. Does not go very far. Yes, please, Councillor Stephen.
Thank you. I accept that it is unreasonable for any sort of applicant to give that amount of money for a school. But are you saying it's reasonable for people moving into these houses that have children not to get a school place? Is it reasonable or unreasonable? I think it's unreasonable. So it works both ways. Although it's not a planning condition, it's a moral condition. And I think that this should be taken into consideration. You just can't plonk houses anywhere and not supply the amenities. Mitigation in this case is obviously not enough, and we don't expect an applicant to put in that amount of money. But something else should be done to ensure that when people move into an area, they've got adequate amenities, and that includes school places.
Anybody else? Okay. That's a really valuable point. We have seen across this borough over the past 4 years, that I'll classify that as infrastructure, as a generic term, schooling and education. Yeah. We have huge issues in Swale for education places, huge issues. We heard earlier about the ridiculous situation on the Isle of Sheppey, where we have the wonderful news that the secondary education has gone ballistic. It's gone out of control in success. It is very successful. However, we don't have the places. So for the first time in generations, that site is now oversubscribed, which is a good news story, apart from the dozen or so that I think are still remaining children that don't have places locally. Now, I know provision can be made elsewhere, but it's aggro, it's frustration for the children, it's frustration for the parents, and it's frustration for the education authority. And it's very costly. That's the other part to it. It's very costly. Okay. Page 88 and page 89. This comes with a history of refusals. 1975, it was refused. Bear with me. 1977, in January, it was refused. Again in January, it was refused. In August of 1977, it was refused. September of 79, it was refused. December of 85, it was refused. You can get where I'm going with this. 1985 in December, again, it was refused. We heard from Councillor Winkless that even more recently in 2021, it was refused. What on earth are we doing here? Seriously, what on earth are we doing here? I think we need to be very careful. And I'll refer now, I made a big red note, page 132. This is on the conclusion. Now, I'm sure you've all read this, members, but it states, The proposal is contrary to the development plan. Full stop. However, the MPPF is a material consideration which indicates that planning permission should be granted. In this case, it is considered that the MPPF can be considered to outweigh the harm that would arise from the conflict with the development plan, and therefore, on balance, it is recommended that planning permission is granted subject to conditions. So the first line, it is contrary to the development plan. We have to consider the MPPF. That is part of why we're here. We have to consider that. However, we also have to consider the children that potentially could be moving into this development after 2 houses are built. We don't know when that's going to be, and we don't know how many children that's going to be. But the evidence at the moment suggests there isn't going to be a new school built for at least, I think, Councillor Palmer, at least another 5 years. Heaven only knows when that will be, because we don't know we're going to be here in 5 years. So that's another consideration. So what we do this evening, how we decide this, well, you've got to look at the children as well. 2 comments were made regards to street lights. We touched on school places. So street lights, Ian, can you just expand upon that and answer? I think it was Chris that made that comment.
Thank you, Chairman. The applicant wasn't proposing any street lighting within the development, although bollard lighting was proposed for the public footpath that would lead from the site towards, from the primary part of the site towards the route through under the railway line. That is not unusual for residential developments. Not all modern developments have street lighting. There's a ability to secure additional lighting through a condition. We've already got condition 13 seeking a lighting plan to be submitted. That's primarily in the interest of ensuring no harm to biodiversity, which is one of the reasons for not including lighting on developments. It doesn't. The applicant has confirmed to me in writing today that if this is an issue, they would be more than happy to amend or provide street lighting, and we could easily address that condition, amend that condition to require it as described.
Legal, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just a number of points. I'll make them quick. It's getting late. The first one is about the provision of school places. First and foremost, the statutory duty to provide school places is placed squarely upon the local education authority under the Education Acts of 1944 onwards. Therefore, it is not open for the committee to implant this particular statutory duty upon the developer. What it can do is be cognizant of the fact that the Education Authority has applied its mind to the implications of school places as it should, and therefore it has come to a determination that a certain amount of money should be applied, and the contribution made, and that would be incorporated into a Section 106 agreement. That's the first point. So I don't think it is open for the committee to give a disproportionate emphasis upon the lacuna which it perceives to be there in terms of school places generated by this development. Secondly, Chairman, you did cite a number of occasions when planning permission has been refused in the past. It has to be remembered that when it was refused in the past, the planning laws and regulations at the time were different. They are again different today as we make a determination. And what we have to remember is that the MPPF emphasizes the presumption in favor of development. And over and above that, we have to look at the tilted balance, because the tilted balance is over and above the presumption. So that criteria that you are applying is beyond that. So it puts a decent amount of emphasis on granting a development unless the harm generated is substantial.
Thank you. And again, I was just merely clarifying the planning history of the site for reference. 90 houses. KCC highways haven't changed their mathematics on houses, as far as I'm aware. That's equivalent at the moment to 405 vehicle movements per day out of that site when it's complete. That doesn't include domestic food deliveries. That doesn't include Amazon. Other outlets are available. And that doesn't include haphazard journeys to and from. That's what they do their calculations on. But they don't have an objection. Highways have not objected. But you can't underestimate the fact of those vehicles. Does anybody else want to say anything? No. Oh, Councillor Marchington and then Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Marchington, can you put your microphone on, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to have another look at the rail bridge. Is the footpath go through the bridge, underneath the bridge, the same as the traffic is, and how wide is that footpath on a health and safety issue if you're asking kids to go walking to school?
Ian, please.
Thank you, Chairman. There's there's the existing route. There's the existing footway under the bridge, which is in that picture at the bottom right. That's the. I know. Bear with me. And then there's the one there on the top right. Thank you. Which is the existing pedestrian route. I haven't got a width for you of the pedestrian route, but it's the one that's already being used at the moment.
It's the only one side.
Yes.
It's got to be 1,200 minimum, hasn't it?
Councillor Marchington, do you want to continue?
Only. What I need to know is if it's the minimum you're allowed on the footpath is 1,200, isn't it? To passing people passing, or two running people running from afar.
I'm not a footpath expert, Councillor Marchington. 1,200 millimetres, you're saying, is the minimum?
It's the minimum that I've had to build to in the past.
Okay.
I'm only doing things around cranes, you know.
Okay. Point is made. Councillor MacDonald.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the possible highway improvements as part of a condition. And obviously a metre is normally the minimum for a footpath these days, 1 metre wide. And I'm astonished about the street lighting business, because I would have thought the development would actually be a requirement for that. So those are the 2 points I would like to make. So if they can be written in.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Before I come to Councillor Thompson, what's the speed limit under the bridge? I ask it for a reason. 20 miles an hour. We all know what they go. Councillor Thompson.
No, just a point that has been raised by a lot of people, really, that Church Lane, as you come out of the proposed access, there's then no footpath on that side, so you have to cross the road once, then you travel up Church Lane, and then to go under the bridge you have to cross again. So in order to do that, you've got to crisscross that road twice. How far does the 20 mile an hour go down under does it carry on to the school? I'm not sure. It does, yeah. But just pointing that out, and then of course the loss of BMV, which is crucial. So just the points.
Any more for any more? Councillor Winkles.
Thank you for letting me come back, Chair. simple application. I may be wrong, but I believe that the lighting in Newington is supplied by the parish council and not Swell. If I'm wrong on that, someone can correct me. That leads me on to say, is getting back to the lighting, on the, if we was minded to pass the this development, on the 106, to have the developer supply lighting on it as a condition. Hold on, is that possible? I'm asking you. Thank you.
I don't think it is on the 106, but it can be conditioned as part of the application, yeah?
So if we're minded to pass this, I propose that that condition is put on, if I've got a second.
That there is street lighting within the development?
Yes.
Members happy with that? Okay, cool, thank you. I see no more hands. That has been proposed and seconded. Those in favour of the application, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Are you in favour? 7, 8. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any abstentions? Okay, that is then approved 8 to 6 with no abstentions. Thank you very much.
Someone dies on Church Lane, remember